Hello everybody, my name is Happy and I'd like to welcome you all to my History Reaction channel. Today we'll be looking at the time we thought eating radiation was a good idea by a channel called Things I Care About. As always, I will have a link to the original content in the description below. I highly encourage you to head over there and show Things I Care About a little appreciation if you like this video. With that said, I've never seen this video. I am familiar with the channel a little bit. It is something along the style of oversimplified, but it's done by a guy, I believe he's from Chile, I think, if I remember correctly. And I always enjoy featuring content creators from other countries other than the United States because I like to get perspectives from people from around the world. I really want to highlight a lot more of that on the channel where I can, provided that they're being done in English so that my general audience can understand it. So we'll take a look at this. I know it features the Radium Girls, which is kind of what I was interested in when I was looking for videos. There was a lot out there, but not a lot that struck me as being good. Because I'm familiar with this channel, I decided to go with this one. So let's just see where this goes.
The Roaring 20s, the time of Chaplin, prohibition, and women rights movements. Speakeasies filled to the brim and... Wait, why are women glowing? Is that radioactive chocolate? A radioactive cigarette? And a radioactive... Oh God, no.
There's been a couple of periods in U.S. history and world history, but especially the United States, where we've done where radioactivity was seen as the next big thing that could be used in everything. And this starts around the time of the Curies, and it continues all the way up through the early atomic era. When, and even later, because I did the first video I did in this series of Cold War and atomic age and nuclear accident series of videos that I'm doing this week alongside the Great Northern War. It was Project Rulison, where they tried to use nuclear detonations to frack for natural gas. So, yeah, but when you get back to the earliest period of radiation, like I said, right after the Curies come out with their discoveries on radioactivity, you're going to see a lot of stuff claiming to have radioactive properties and marketed as a good thing. You're going to have radioactive medicines. Radioactive cigarettes was a thing. Radioactive food was a thing. And we'll get into it. The Radium Girls, which is a huge tragedy. There was a recent movie done on the Radium Girls. I haven't had a chance to see it, but I would like to, because that's one of our great tragedies. It's horrible what happened to those women. It's disturbing. But let's continue and see where he's going with this. Yeah.
On November 8, 1895, German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen was experimenting on electron beams when he noticed a glow coming from a nearby chemically coated screen. Intrigued, he named whatever caused the glow X-rays. He began studying these new X-rays and quickly discovered that they were partially absorbed by the human body. He realized that if he placed a tissue between an X-ray source and a detector, he could figure out how dense each section of the tissue is. In other words, he could tell apart bone from soft tissue. This was a game changer. For the first time ever, humans could see the inside of the human body without having to cut it open. Shortly after, the Curies figured out that radiation could destroy tissue. How did they figure this out, you might be wondering? Well, it went a little something like this. Honey, hold this radium. How do you feel? Normal, but it's getting red. Noted. Have some more. I still feel nothing, but the red spot is getting bigger. Noted. Have some more. How about now? How do you feel? Interesting. Noted. And Madame Curie soon had a great idea. If radiation can penetrate human tissue and also destroy it, perhaps it can be used to destroy tumors. If used carefully, radiation could be used to treat lupus and cancer. These advances were so impressive that it almost seemed like magic. Magic? Are you saying radiation is magical? No, I mean that it resembles magic. Magic, you say? Can we sell it? I love magic. Magic makes you money. Can we sell this?
Any technology, if sufficiently advanced, may be confused for magic. Something along those lines anyway.
I believe radiation is magical. Say no more, I know exactly what to do. Are you insecure about your smile? Is it not
Toothpaste,
shining like
yeah,
it
I
used
forgot
to?
about that.
Well, fear not, because our new Doramat radioactive toothpaste is here to solve all your problems. It will whiten your teeth.
Quick note, you see this 99,99. Here in the United States, we use a period for a decimal point. In other parts of the world, you'll often see them using commas. That really confused me when I first went overseas to Russia, because they use this format, and it causes my wife, who is a Russian immigrant, she's a citizen now, but she got over here and was taking math in college. She kept getting confused because she'd see the commas in like 1,000 and think it was 1.0 instead. And that would kind of throw off some of her math results. So that's what we're looking at there. I just thought I'd throw that in as a bit of trivia for those who aren't aware of that. I'm sure a lot of people are, but it did throw me off when I first got over there. I figured it out pretty quickly, but...
And freshen your disgusting, putrid breath. Wait, are you saying that this toothpaste is radioactive? Yes. There is radioactive material in this toothpaste. Yes. If I use this toothpaste, there will be radiation inside my mouth. Yes. Take all my money! Take it! I see nothing wrong with this. To be fair, although their advertisement stated your teeth will shine with radioactive brilliance, later testing showed no detectable amount of radiation. So congratulations, Jimmy, you just got scammed.
Aww.
Are you done? Yes, sorry. If cleaning your teeth with radiation is not for you, don't worry, because you can also eat Burke and Brown's radium-infused chocolate. It will revert the effects of aging and rejuvenate you. Do you have any disease, infection, or ailment? Worry not. Water infused with radioactive particles will cure literally anything from stomach aches to mental problems or even erectile dysfunction. You might want to write that down, James. Tired that smoking is not giving you cancer fast enough? Buy Abachari's radium cigarettes. Just like regular cigarettes, but with radium. Call now and find out what other radioactive products we have in store for you. No way. Hi, I want to order everything. What the? My love, look what I just bought. A radioactive water dispenser to prevent and cure all ailments. Radioactive clothing that makes me better at sports. Some radioactive makeup for you. Radium suppositories to help me with my manhood problems.
Yep.
Radium condoms for when the suppositories kick in. And did you really spend all our money on obvious scams again? Oh, honey, it cannot be a scam. It was all over the news. Look. How many times have I told you, you can't consume all your news from the same place? Sometimes news outlets have their own interests, financial or political, so you have to get information from multiple sources. But that sounds like a lot of work.
Ground News,
It doesn't have to be. If you use today's sponsor, Ground News is an app and website.
I use Ground News. I love it. We will, however, be skipping the sponsor since this video is a little older. There's no need for us to watch this now at this point. If you're interested, check it out on your own. I'll have the link to the original content in the description below.
Not only will you get 30%
and we're back
off, but you will also be supporting my channel. Okay, now back to the video. To be fair, most of these products probably did not contain any actual radioactive material, but the fact that they were marketed as such tells you all you need to know about public's perception of radium at the time. For a few decades, corporations and even some scientists got away with this reckless use of radiation. But they were playing with fire, and the time would soon come for people to get burned.
When I was a kid, I had a uranium detecting kit that had a lot of samples of uranium as well as tools to identify and detect uranium. Again, I mentioned this in the previous video I did. I live in the U-boom territory where uranium was a big thing. But yeah, even in the late 60s, early 70s, they were still marketing radioactive products, and in this case it did have some real radiation in it, although it was fairly minor. Raw uranium ore is not that bad in reasonable doses. I think if it was, I think everybody that lives where I live would be dead already, because I'm sitting right on top of uranium fields, you know.
In the US, the Radium Corporation and the Radium Dial Company began selling glow-in-the-dark watches. To make them glow in the dark, they used paint infused with radioactive particles. These small dials required very fine painting skills, and the companies decided that young women and their small hands were perfect for the task. Surprisingly, this job was actually considered an elite job, as it paid more than 3 times the average factory job, which gave the girls a degree of financial freedom that was craved in a time of activism and female empowerment. Many of these women would then spread the message of the job's appeal to their friends and families, and often whole sets of siblings would work together in the studio. By the time their shift was over, the workers would be covered in paint and glow in the dark, which gained them the nickname the Ghost Girls. This was actually part of the allure of the job, and some of the women came to work in their best dresses so that they would then shine in the down halls at night. Okay, so how exactly am I supposed to paint this thing? Oh, don't worry, it's super easy. Just dip the brush into the radioactive paint, give it a little lick, and you're good to go. You want me to lick the radioactive material? Yes. With my tongue? Yes. Which leads to the inside of my body where all my vital organs are? Yes. Are you sure this is safe? Of course. It says so in this science paper I paid this scientist to write. I would never expose my workers to dangerous substances for profit.
I don't know whether it was actually or suggested by the employers or not. I don't know if that's accurate. I do know that it was commonly done because this is fine precision writing. You had to keep your brush point as fine as possible. And I know a lot of people do have that tendency to lick their brush, or not lick, but basically pull it through your lips to get it fine and in the correct shape for fine precision work. I used to, when I was a teenager, do painting little gaming lead those old lead miniatures they used to sell. They don't do that anymore because lead's dangerous as well. So I probably got some lead poisoning from that back in the day. But yeah, I did that all the time, trying to do the precision work on some of those lead figures. So I suspect a lot of it was more unconscious than actually something that the company told them to do, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, I trust you. She should not have in fact trusted him. The women were instructed to put the brushes on their lips in order to give them a fine tip. And each time they did so, they swallowed a little bit of the glowing green paint. Although the owners of their companies told their workers that the paint was completely safe, they themselves carefully avoided any exposure to the radioactive substances.
Of course.
And of course, the claim that the paint was safe was a complete lie. Radium has very similar chemical properties to calcium. So once inside the human body,
it does.
Radium tends to naturally deposit itself in all kinds of bone tissue. In 1922, a worker called Molly Maggia fell ill and had to quit the studio. Initially, she reported an aching tooth, which her dentist pulled out. Shortly after, the tooth next to that one began to hurt as well and also had to be extracted. Okay, so you have been losing teeth like crazy, your mouth has been filled with painful ulcers and make you drool blood and pus, and you feel agonizing pain in your limbs that have made it impossible for you to walk, right? Yep, I have no idea what this is, but here's an aspirin. Good luck. Okay, Molly, let's see how you're doing today. Open your mouth, please.
Yep. One of the worst aspect of the Radium Girls is the damage to the jaws. There are pictures available of some of these Radium Girl jaws. If you want to check those out on your own, do so, but I would warn you ahead of time. Some of them are kind of disturbing. It's pretty gruesome stuff.
When her dentist prodded delicately at her jawbone, it broke against his fingers. He removed it, not by an operation, but merely by putting his fingers in her mouth and lifting it out. On September 12, 1922, the infection ate through Molly's jugular vein, and she passed away at 5 p.m. The nurse that tried to help her claimed she suffered a slow and painful death. And at this point, she wasn't the only one affected. More of her colleagues were also experiencing the effects of the mysterious ailment. By 1924, 50 women who would work at these factories had fallen ill, and a dozen had died. Do you have anything to say about the claims that your paint is killing your workers? That is absolutely false. American Radium categorically denies that our magical paint is anything but magical and wonderful. Let our official company doctor explain what happened. There is a clear and logical explanation for all of this. The workers all died of syphilis. All of them? Yes. Even the 14-year-old virgin girl? Yes. They are attention-seeking hoes. All of them. The companies were clearly not going to go down without a fight. A tile painter by the name of Grace Fryer asked the company to pay her compensation money to cover the cost of her medical bills. Her request was refused, and she decided to take the matter to court.
Yep.
She visited lawyer after lawyer after lawyer. No one wanted to take her case. Not only did they believe it impossible to defeat such a powerful corporation and their army of lawyers, but the regulations at the time were incredibly unfavorable.
Yeah, this is still early. This is the 1920s, primarily. And labor laws, they were starting to come into effect, but there was still a long way to go. You know, however you feel about big government, there's reasons a lot of these laws that are very annoying and frustrating to everyone. There's a reason they exist. They're to prevent things like this, because I don't think people now realize just how bad things were in the past, especially at workplaces. A lot of jobs were extremely hazardous to your health. They could have long-term health complications if you were lucky. They could get you killed if you weren't. My grandfather was a coal miner, and he had to retire early due to black lung. He survived it longer than a lot of his friends and acquaintances did, but it did cause severe lifelong health problems. There are so many jobs like this in the past that were just dangerous, and there were just minimal, if any, protections. So you were literally taking your life into your hands going to work, whether it be from some immediate danger or from long-term danger.
There was a statute of limitations of 5 months at the state level and 2 years at the federal level for workplace exposure to dangerous chemicals.
Yeah, but the problem with that is, when we're talking radiation, it can take quite a while for symptoms to show up.
But exposure to radiation took longer than that manifest.
Exactly.
So by the time any workers came forward, the statute of limitations was already up. After 2 years of relentless search, Grace Fryer made her way to the office of a young lawyer named Raymond Berry. Despite her broken back, broken foot, and a disintegrating jaw, Grace valiantly pleaded her case, and he decided to take it. He believed that the statute of limitations timer should only begin counting down once the worker is made aware of their ailment.
Exactly.
According to this interpretation, Grace still had 2 months to sue the company. Word spread, and more girls joined the suit: Catherine Schaub, Quinta and Albina Maggia, Molly's sisters, and Edna Hussman. They knew that the days were numbered. Some had merely months to live. Still, they wanted to make justice not only for themselves, but for all others. The press called them the Radium Girls.
And this is going to be a really hard fight for them because they are on a ticking clock. And all the other side has to do is delay until either the statute of limitations is up or the girls die. And I'm sure most of you know, in our jaded modern time, tying things up in court is not that hard to do.
The company executives denied it all. They denied they ever instructed the girls to lip point. They denied that practice was done at all in their studios. They denied that radium powder clung to them. And of course, they denied that radium itself was dangerous. The USRC reached out to Grace Fryer. "Hey Grace, my friend, remember when you asked us for compensation money? How about we do that now? Not because my client did anything wrong, but because they are such a good company and care so much about you that they want to make sure you're taken care of." Good try. I'll see you in court. The Radium Girls now needed to prove that radium was responsible for their condition. But the only way at the time to check if the bones did indeed have radium was to extract the bones, cremate them, and dissolve the ashes into hydrochloric acid.
That could be a problem.
This, of course, was not something they could do, except for one, their little sister, Molly Maggia. The examining doctors took her apart and examined her bones. There was no sign of syphilis. There was only radium. The results gained media attention, and the case became even more famous. On January 12, 1928, the trial finally began. I will make it clear. Objection!
Sounds about
that
right.
It was the USRC's radioactive paint. Objection! That poisoned the girls. Objection! I call the accused.
Yeah, he's making the same point I made earlier, that stalling tactics are going to be very powerful in this case because these girls are on limited time.
Grace Fryer to the stand. What is your name? Grace Fryer. Objection! You can't object to yourself. Oh, sorry, old habits. So, what is your name? Grace Fryer. Would you then agree that Grace is your first name? Yes. And Fryer your last name? Yes.
Trying to
So
stall.
Grace Fryer would be your full name? Yes. Do you agree that your name spelled backwards is Reirf Ekarg? The defense knew that the girls were tired and ill, and they prolonged the case as much as they could. Still, slowly but surely, the Radium Girls were able to prove that their ailments were caused by radium. But their time was running out, and the Radium Company lawyers knew this. Once upon a time, there was a simple and beautiful girl named Cinderella. She lived with her evil stepmother and 2 stepsisters. Objection! How is this relevant? I'll get to it. When? This is taking too long. My clients have no longer than 18 months to live. Really? Is that so? Ring ring. Oh, excuse me. Wow, that's so crazy. One of our key witnesses just called. He has to leave the country for 19 months, so we are forced to ask for a recess until then. What? You can't do that. Recess granted. We reconvene in 19 months. The women had no other choice but to negotiate a settlement out of court. Although their suit was unsuccessful, the case gained incredible media attention, and their experiences made the issue of radium safety a front-page story around the world. But even at this point, the United States Radium Corporation denied its role, even as their workers continued to get sick and die. For years, more workers unsuccessfully tried to sue the radium company. Despite massive media attention and support, no suit was successful. Until in 1938, a dying radium worker named Catherine Wolfe Donahue decided to sue Radium Dial over her illness. She testified from her literal deathbed. She was so ill that her lawyers didn't even know if she would be alive for the next hearing. Her case was aided by the death by radiation poisoning of Dr. Sabin, the inventor of radium dial paint, as well as by scientist Harrison Stanford Martland, who conclusively proved that radium paint had poisoned the watch painters. Finally, the judge found the company to be guilty, but the ruling was appealed again and again and again. It was fought all the way to the Supreme Court. In the end, the case had been won 8 times before the company was finally forced to pay. Catherine died shortly after, and the next year, Germany invaded Poland, starting World War II. Demand for glow-in-the-dark dials skyrocketed, but thanks to the massive media attention, not enough girls were willing to take the jobs.
I wouldn't.
The US government was forced to take action and passed life-saving regulations to protect workers. It ultimately led to the establishment of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The Center for Human Radiobiology studied the girls extensively, allowing for better and safer radiotherapies. But you won't often read their names in history books. For today, the individual Radium Girls have largely been forgotten. It was because of their strength and perseverance in the face of agonizing pain and unavoidable death that workers' rights improved for hundreds of millions of people. Catherine Donahue, Grace Fryer, Catherine Schaub, Edna Hussman, Molly Maja, Quinta Maja MacDonald, Albina Maja Laris. These are just some of the names of the women we need to honor and salute as fearless champions who stood up against injustice not just for themselves, but for all who would follow. Let them shine through history with all that they achieved in their tragically short lives. Let us forever remember the tragic story of the Radium Girls.
Yeah, yep, things I care about. I care about that too, because this is closer to my area of history, where I specialize. My area of focus tends to be on things like natural disasters and famine, disease, things like that. And it's just terrible to see things like this that are so preventable. And in this particular case, it's so obvious that something was very wrong. And the fact that they had to fight so hard to get change, it's tragedy. It's just pure tragedy. Anyway, we will continue tomorrow with more atomic age topics, as well as continuing our exploration of the Great Northern War. And next coming weekend, we will start in on oversimplified Cold War, and then we'll see where we go beyond that. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying this week, and I will see you all next time. Until then, bye-bye.